It's time for the Carolina Panthers, the last team in the NFC South, and their big three started off with a very big piece in Ika Mekwonu at tackle, and then followed up by Matt Corral and Brandon Smith, the linebacker out of Penn State. Not a whole lot of draft picks here for the Carolina Panthers, but two very interesting names. We got to start off with your boy Icky, though. Aaron, I mean, this was a perfect. I mean, some people wanted quarterback here. I mocked them with Kenny Pickett here because of the noise around Pickett and the Panthers, but they end up playing it safe and going with Ike Ekwonu, the tackle out of NC State. What does this mean for Carolina?
It means they finally got their cornerstone tackle to protect whoever the hell they have at quarterback. I said it before. I'll say it again. It hasn't changed. The best player in the draft. Pound for pound, position for position, the best player in the draft. I think he's a sure thing. Just mean. And you listen to his interviews off camera or on camera or whatever. He's nice, soft-spoken, whatever. On the football field, you can see it just flips the switch. He's a mean, unbelievable combination of size, power, athletic ability. His hands just pack a punch, causing shock to defenders. This is a guy that's one of the best run blockers coming out of college that I've seen. Now, there's still some technique stuff in the passing game, pass protection. He's probably not the most polished. But when you talk about a team that is trying to run the football and build off play action, Ike Mekwonu is going to make holes for Christian McCaffrey, who's one of the best running backs in football when healthy. So it's just a safe pick. It's the safe pick. It's the right pick. And it's not always the sexy pick to take those offensive linemen, but it would, to me, it's what made their draft with limited draft capital. You just had to take him there.
Yeah,
it was sexy to me.
What a guy!
That board fell beautifully, man.
Look at that suit, though.
It did.
Look at that suit. Hey,
it did. You're right. That board fell perfectly for Carolina, to where they didn't have to worry about him, Evan Neal being gone, and then looking at a bunch of DBs, right? Because if Sauce Gardner and those guys don't go in the top, then it's probably Ickham and Evan Neal, and then they're there. Do we take Charles Cross here, or do we trade back? Or do we take a quarterback? Like, they would have been in a little bit of a kind of a pickle. So the board fell perfectly to Carolina, and that was a big win for them.
Yeah, there are some teams that just had like that perfect, like, run the card up. We already know who we're going with kind of picks. And I mean, Aiden Hutchinson with the Lions and maybe Icky with the Carolina Panthers. Talk about like how things here are not a sexy pick. Icky not being a sexy pick with being an offensive lineman and tackle. AJ, you decided to note a 7th round pick here to talk about. That, if we're talking about sexy picks and not so sexy picks, us talking about a 7th rounder is the opposite of sexy. But why do we need to talk about Kayla Barnes?
So, this guy, if you guys recall, Baylor, once upon a time a basketball school, last year made some noise on the football field, and a lot of it was for that defense in a conference where defense isn't really existent. But Kayla Barnes, I'm not saying this guy is going to stand out and be the best cornerback in the draft, but I am saying don't be surprised if he's one of the top ones you talk about in a few years to come. This is just an athletic profile type of guy who can do a lot of different things. Runs a 4.23, so he's blazing fast, 40-inch vertical, 11 and a half foot broad jump, and has exceptional hands. Now, where the production has lacked, he was another one of those products of a big unit. I mean, he was playing next to guys like Jalen Petrie, doing a lot of that back-end work. JT Woods, another guy from Baylor who had a lot of production, and he fit in where he fit in. He made sure he didn't make mistakes. He was a part of his assignments. And again, just an athletic freak. So when you're talking about a team like Carolina, who didn't have a lot of draft capital, and that's a recurring theme here for a lot of these teams, what you do with it matters at that point. In finding a value in the 7th round and a guy who came from a good defense, a good defensive scheme, and has the athletic profile, I think that works very well for him. And then I did just note Cade Mays because I thought a lot of teams missed out on a guy who's played over 2,000 snaps in college. And as an offensive lineman, give me that experience. And that's something they need, was an offensive line. So those last two picks, pick 199 and 242 for the Carolina Panthers. High risk, very high risk. High reward, very high reward in my opinion, and very low risk for both of them.
Yeah, that low risk right there. That's the biggest thing. I mean, and you talk about it with teams that you don't have that many draft picks, so you have to make them out. And that's what the Carolina Panthers did late. Aaron?
They did. They did late. One other guy I want to mention, obviously, they drafted a quarterback in Matt Corral. I'm not very happy about Matt Corral. I thought they should have drafted more players and just went for the quarterback next year. We talked about maybe not reaching for a guy. I still think it was a reach. You're talking about a guy who turned the ball over a lot at Ole Miss, wasn't extremely productive. His best season was like 3,300 yards, 20 touchdowns, 5 picks. Prior to that, he had 14 interceptions the year before. He's a playmaker. He runs a little bit, but I didn't like that they went there. I feel like it's just Sam Darnold kind of all over again. But I'm going to name one sleeper in this draft that I think we're going to remember for a very, very long time. Amari Barno, linebacker. There is something about this dude who is electrically fast and super long. And I mean, like you talked about arm length earlier, his wingspan and his ability to kind of get his hands out in front. He is a linebacker that I think is going to have a huge impact from Virginia Tech for this team, and is going to be, I predict he's going to be a Pro Bowl linebacker in the NFL. I really do. He reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you guys remember Broncos linebacker DJ, was it DJ Wilson? When the Broncos had all those speedy linebackers, he reminds me a lot of a DJ Wilson at that time. I think this guy is going to be a player, super high motor, plays with good balance. Not the biggest. He'll put on weight. He'll lift some weights. You know, they got those biggest weight rooms and shit in the NFL. He'll put on weight. He's a JUCO product. Do not be surprised if Amari Barno ends up being an NFL like Pro Bowl linebacker.
Hey, Panthers do a good job with those linebackers. I mean,
they do.
That's also a thing. Yeah, so definitely could happen. But the rest of the NFC South looks like this. Again, we talk about it. Not a lot of picks for these teams in the NFC. The NFC South, I should say. The Carolina Panthers lead the charge with the 3.32, and right behind them, really, I mean, this is a tight race in the NFC South. Not a lot of picks, so it's much tighter for a grade. I mean, the grades look they're a little different in the NFC South, but Falcons at 2, and then the Saints literally 0.01 behind the Falcons. Shout out Aaron for his math, an incredible grading system that he has. And then the Bucks at 2.95, which is not bad at all. Again, that's a full sale score. That's a full sale APA for me. So boom, right there. GPAs, are there any, do you have anyone want to,
very indicative GPAs of how the NFC South is almost year to year. Take out the year Tom Brady came to the Bucks and they just dominated. Normally the NFC South checks up like this a lot. Very tight races all the way through. Division, you're seeing 7 and 9 teams go to the playoffs because they were all bad that year too. Or then you see the 11 and 5 guys that are all good that year. So I'm not surprised that all the grades were so close together.
It'll probably end up being the opposite of what like the grades, like the highest is the Panthers and then the lowest is the Bucks. The lowest in the standings will most likely be the Panthers, and the highest standings team would be probably the Bucks. So
yeah, well, remember, a lot of these teams didn't have very many high picks outside of the Falcons having 3 in the top 2 rounds. The Saints had a couple of first rounders, but Tampa Bay didn't pick until the second round. Panthers had a first round pick. It didn't pick again until the third. I thought Carolina maximized their draft with their limited capital. I thought the players they got, again, outside of the Matt Corral, which, could have even bumped up their grade even a bit more, but you address the position you feel like you need in a quarterback. But I think it's close. I think that's the thing we're talking about, a close division. It's going to be a close race. And Tampa Bay, they're the class of the division right now.